Okay, we're ready to start building a sweep. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and build just this center roof as my first sweep. I'm going to do it as a model in place, which means I build it right here inside the project. There's no reason to go do this as a family because this is the only roof element of its type. I know these ones are very similar. Those ones should be built as a family because they're going to be repeated. But this one is a little bit different. It's totally unique. It's a one-off. We're just going to do it right here inside the project. Now, like I said before, a sweep is simply a path and a profile or a shape that gets run around that path. So in this case, the path is just going to be an octagon around the top of these walls. And the shape would be, if you can kind of envision looking at this roof straight on and just drawing half of it in profile, like my cursor is doing. That's the profile. And if we were able to draw that shape, it would take it and just wrap it around the octagon, and that's how you would create a form like this. Otherwise, that form would be incredibly hard to build. I can't think of any other way that you could do it. But with a sweep, it's going to work. A sweep doesn't have to have a path that's an octagon, so it doesn't have to be segmented lines. It could also be a circle. In this case, it does need to be an octagon so that we get all those different segments in the roof. This is what it looks like in the real world, and you can see that it sticks out a little bit past the wall, so that's something that I'm going to have to try to do and correct because my model doesn't show it that way. Okay, so to get started, we always need to be thinking about reference planes. The active reference plane in any 3D model or any 3D view within Revit is usually down here at the ground level. And we can click Show, and I can find it down there. It's teeny tiny, but that's where it's at. It's not really going to help me to build something way up here. So maybe the first thing I'll do is set the reference plane. We'll go Set. If I choose Pick a Plane right now, I guess I'm going to struggle just a little bit because I need to select the top of the wall, but I can't see the top of the wall. And just so that you know, another way of doing this would be to go create another level and put it right up here at the top of the tower walls. And then I could always go Set Work Plane and I could choose it from this list. But in this case, I think I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what it would be like if I just select the top of the walls. First, I got to hide the SketchUp model. So I select it, HH, to temporarily hide it. Okay, I'll zoom into the top of the walls here, and we'll use Set, Pick a Plane. And as it's hovering over the top of any one of these walls, you can see it's highlighting just the top portion. And there it is. Sometimes when you select the top of a wall, it might actually only align with, I can't do it, but it might only be as wide as that wall was. And so feel free to take the grips, expand it, and if visually that's helpful to you, it does make it seem like there's a bigger surface now to work on, the bigger that square is, or that plane. Okay, now that I have that set, we can go find our regular creating tools. They're under Architecture, Component, Model in Place. Normally I would use Generic Model, but in this case, this is a roof, and there is a category for roof. And it won't change the way that we create this. It just simply puts our shape into a different category. And roof makes sense here. So I'm going to choose roof. Won't worry about naming it. Just so you know, all of my work plane tools are still here and they're still active. So even though I set the work plane before I started modeling, I wouldn't have had to. I can still change the work plane now that I'm inside my modeling tools. But in this case, it's already set where it needs to be. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go find the sweep tool. Now, the sweep tool is broken up into two parts, the path tools and the profile tools. The profile right now is inactive because it's waiting for me to start off with a path. A path can be done either by sketching directly onto my profile or by picking a path. Picking a path implies there's already some geometry in the model that I can use to select my path. And that's how I'm going to do it this time. Pick path. And whatever line I click on first, you're going to see, I'll do it over here, it's going to create a new work plane. And this time it's outlined with a green dash. And as I move around here, you can see that I now have two work planes, or two profile planes. And one of them, the first one is just to continue my path. The second one is to be able to draw the shape or the profile. And that's the shape that will be run along the path that I'm about to finish creating. So if I want to keep going here, I'll select the other walls. You can see how that pink line is showing up each time I click. Now, it's not actually connecting, and that's just because when two walls come together, Revit always gets confused. It doesn't know quite what to do at an intersection because you kind of have the end of a wall as opposed to the length of the wall getting in the way. I'm just going to go back and make sure that this is connected all the way around. There can't be any overlapping lines, and there can't be any gaps. Okay, that seems to have worked. If it didn't, or if you ran into troubles here, you could always type in TR for trim and make sure that the lines are intersecting properly. The fact that I can't trim anything means that they do intersect correctly. Okay, and this is how we'll find out for sure. Once I accept, if it likes my path, and it does, then we move on to the profile. All the profile tools now just became active. The profile has two ways of entering a profile. One of them would be from this list. And you can hit the drop down and just see, is there anything in my project that is already considered to be a profile? Let's try gutter. You can see a little gutter profile just showed up on that profile plane that was running perpendicular to the first one. Okay, and then I can change it here. I can select anything else. Let's try a stair tread. And since I don't want any of these, I'm going to go all the way back to the top and choose by sketch. And that's the default selection. So if you don't hit anything, then it's going to say by sketch. And how do you do a sketch? Well, you have to tell it that you want to edit the profile, and it will let you start drawing. So edit profile, here are my drawing tools. In this case, I want to draw the roof the way that I saw it before, only the roof isn't there anymore. So I need to unhide it, and I'm going to type in HR. That'll bring it back from the temporary hide. Let's go ahead and click on the front here, because in order for me to draw this accurately, I need to be able to look at it straight on. And if this is too complicated, because I'm in a 3D view, then it might be advantageous to go look at it in an actual elevation. I think I will try it that way. Okay, it looks exactly the same, but it's a little bit easier to draw here without making a mistake. And fortunately, sometimes you can just use pick lines, and if it will let you, you can just pick the lines instead of drawing them. Unfortunately, I needed mine to go down and then out just a little bit further. So I'm not so sure that I can use this. I'm going to, I'm just going to make it very close and come out a little bit further to here. And then I'm going to go draw my target, which is for this roof to extend beyond. In fact, I should give it an actual distance. So let's say that I want this thing to go out maybe a foot. It's okay to accentuate things in a 3D print. So I want to make sure that it will show up. Okay, and then I'll go up to this point, and now I just need a curve that gets me from A to B. And it looks like that's going to work out. Okay, and it's not a shape yet. It's a nice outline of the roof, but it has to be a fully enclosed shape. So I'm going to draw this back towards the center, and then all the way down to the bottom, and then back out to the end. And be careful, because I already drew a small segment. You can see it highlighting there. And if this new line overlaps with the previous line, it's going to be a problem. So I need to just go back to the starting point, and I should have a profile. Now, one thing that I typically do is try to avoid a shape like this that goes all the way to the center. For some reason, that will cause me a problem, I don't know, about half the time. Half the time it won't, half the time it will. If it does cause a problem, it's because part of the shape when it gets extruded or swept around the path, is creating geometry that overlaps with itself. And whenever that happens, it won't let you proceed, and it just won't generate anything. So I'm going to select the line and move it over a little bit. By the way, the more you zoom in, the smaller the increment when you push your arrow keys on the keyboard, and that's how I'm moving this around. So I just don't want it to be perfectly in the center. Something like that should be good. And now I'm going to go back to 3D. I always like to sort of eyeball this in 3D and see what it's going to do. It looks all like it's going to work out just fine. So now the green check mark here should just be to finish editing the shape or the profile. And if it's completely enclosed, then it will let me proceed. If it doesn't let you proceed there, it's going to tell you you have a gap or you have overlapping lines, and it can be a lot of work to go back and try to find that. But that is the process. That's what you'll have to do. Sometimes when I run into issues, I'll just start deleting lines out and looking to see if maybe there was an extra line in there that was so small and undetectable. But anyways, mine's working, so I'm going to carry on. Now it's showing me my path alongside my shape. And if I click the check mark one more time, it should let me create it. And this is what will happen. Just sometimes it's finicky. It won't like it. It's hard to know why. I'm not going to delete the element. I'm just going to hit cancel. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to try again. And I won't make you watch this part, but I'm going to just fiddle with my shape until it accepts it. And overlapping that shape with itself, like I said, is usually the problem. So that's where I'm going to start. The fact that it's not perfectly in the center concerns me just a little bit. That could have something to do with it. Anyways, I'm going to go investigate. I'm going to see if I can find the problem, and then I'll unpause the video and explain to you what happened. Okay, fortunately, I got it to work, and as is usually the case, I got it to work by simplifying things. And it worked this time. It's usually what works for me. Here's how I did it. I'm going to go back into this by double-clicking. Okay, the shape I simplified. I tried a few things like tapering it in so that it was even less close to the center at the bottom. That had nothing to do with it because that didn't actually fix it. It was my path. And by the way, once you have this almost complete and you still want to make changes, all you have to do is select the part that you want to change, like the path, for example, and then I can go back here to pick path all over again. And it takes me into the sketch mode. Now, remember how I had those little segments on each side? Well, in some ways, simplifying would mean let's just have fewer lines in the path. And when I took those out, my shapes or my path ended up looking like this. There was a break on every segment, and I just trimmed those together, TR for trim. That actually did the job. I don't know why that should do it, but that's what did it. That also brought the shape or the profile right here to the center of that line, and that's why it wasn't centered before. It's because there was a segment and then a little segment next to it. Anyways, like I said, oftentimes it's the shape that I simplify, and that just didn't seem to make a difference. But this is how you can go back to edit that shape. You would just edit the profile again, and it takes you into sketch mode just for that. You can accept it again when you're done. Accept it again. And there you have it. Oh, let's go ahead and finish the model here. There you have it. Turn off the profile plane. That is my roof. And you can see that it turned out really well for what I was trying to accomplish here. Now, one other thing that I think is worth pointing out, I'm going to edit this one more time. Edit the sweep. The path in this case is continuous. It starts and stops in the same place. That's not a requirement. A path can just be one line if you want it to be. It can be one segment, or it can be a series of segments. So even if I were to take out this one, you'll see that this is still going to work. I guess not, but in many cases it will. It's trying to make it work, and it almost is, but of course it would leave a big gap there if I were to do this anyway, so I would never want that. But again, just a path can be a series of lines, doesn't have to be connected at the ends. Okay, I'm just going to fix this by hitting cancel, and the red X should take it right back to where it used to be. And in the next video, I'll show you how to model in place once again, but we're going to do a little sweep underneath the overhang so that we get some of this shape that you see along the cornice here.